Episode 13, Chapter 12, If I Can't Swim. Chapter 12, If I Can't Swim After 40 Days. Under the sea, hundreds of thousands of animals swam. Fish, crustaceans, mollusks, but the top of the food chain were the man-shaped Sahaghin, the cruel and brutal fishmen who had once warred with the merfolk. Now, though, they held uncontested dominance below the waves, thanks to the one they had sworn themselves to, who had given their leaders his blessing. Those leaders now bowed before him, down at the very bottom of the sea, where even the fish feared to come. So far down that not even the rays of the sun could ever reach, but only fade and die trying, before ever touching the dark waters below. Where the sea shrine, fabled heart of water, had sunken, bringing the merfolk low along with it. Where Kraken, fiend of water, lurked and plotted and raged against the world above.
You heard me right. She has abandoned us to our fates.
Kraken snarled at one of the wizard Sahaghin before him.
We stand alone against the threat that shall descend upon us soon. The Light Warriors. I do not know how or when they will come, but come they shall, just like they came for my brethren before me. And they will stop at nothing to slay me as well. That will not happen, Lord Kraken.
A Sahag vowed.
They are dryland folk, who know not the ways of water warfare. As soon as they enter our domain, we shall strike, and their corpses will float back to the surface before they ever near the sea shrine. I'm so reassured.
Kraken replied dryly.
I'll bet liches, ogres and giants made similar vows, as well as Karis. Whatever she had that was smart enough to talk at all.
He crossed several pairs of tentacles behind his back and turned to stare at a wall.
But you're all I have, so you'll have to do. You Sahaghin are my most dutiful servants, so I'm placing you in command of all my other forces. Even the Naga, ghosts, and sea trolls. If any of them refuse to follow your command, direct them to me and I'll correct them. By the neck, if need be. Recall all your red Sahaghin from the surface, and tell them to bring their sharks as well.
He thought for a moment.
Don't bother with the odd eyes or the blue Sahaghin, though. Those dim light warriors have grown so accursedly strong, they'd kill those ones by sneezing. At least the sharks will be passable meat shields, if nothing else. How shall we deploy them?
Another wizard Sahaghin inquired.
Send the weakest and the best swimmers out first, to intercept them outside the shrine itself. Keep the strongest ones in here. Especially the water elementals, they lack power if they get too far away from me.
The fiend of water chewed a tentacle tip for a moment.
Don't bother putting any guards on the top floor, no sense in getting the merfolk riled up. They can't get in that far up, anyways.
He suddenly tensed up, but did not turn around.
Well, well. I sense a sister of mine, come to visit again. And here I thought we were through, Tiamat.
The Sahaghin stared up at the cloud of darkness that hung above their heads.
Go, all of you. You have your orders, so leave me and my sister to have our family discussion.
The fishmen complied all too eagerly. Within seconds, the two fiends were alone together.
Kraken.
Tiamat greeted him coldly.
It was, in fact, my intention to allow you to deal with matters here as you saw fit, without my interference. However, something has come up. You don't say.
Still looking at the wall, Kraken's lips pulled back in a twisted, disgusting grin.
Something I could help you with? Please, go on, dear sister. I hunger for your words. You know of the robots I have pressed into my service.
Tiamat explained grudgingly.
They served the Lefinish before me, and while some of them have fully turned to serve only me, it seems not all of them have. The stories of the Light Warriors circulated among them, and one of them took a risk. He flew from the sky tower, with a cube. A cube.
Kraken didn't have to feign his confusion, partially to his pleasure and partially irritation.
What the hell is a cube? They're devices used to activate the teleporter in the Mirage Tower.
Tiamat continued, voice growing angry.
If the Light Warriors get it, they'll be able to access the Sky Palace from there, bypassing the sky itself entirely. The robot landed in northern Onrak. Have some of your land-crawling minions search for it. Ah, such a sad tale that is, sister.
The Fiend of Water shook his head, then turned around so she could see his grin.
However, I don't recall you being particularly dripping with sympathy and aid when I needed help. Just the opposite, in fact. Do you remember that, by any chance?
In the darkness that cloaked Tiamat, eyes many of them glowed red.
You dare? Of course I do.
Now Kraken sneered, showing his contempt fully.
I am a fiend, sister, and as you so kindly reminded me, that means I have no affection or concern for anything. Even you, or that precious hide of yours you're so bent on protecting that you can't even spare one measly eye. Well, since you're the strongest and eldest this time around, I do believe I should be following your example. If you've let the key to your door slip through your fingers, that's your problem, sister. I'm looking to my own defenses, and you're on your own.
He laughed, sinister and slimy sounding, and Tiamat raised a claw.
Have you forgotten what happened when last you angered me, brother? On the contrary.
Kraken wagged a tentacle tip.
I remember it all too clearly. However, here and now, we are in the heart of my domain. Do you really want to try your power against mine, here? I wouldn't advise it.
He rubbed the tentacle against his chin in mock thought.
Well, I do seem to feel like giving you advice, at least. Since you're hoarding your minions so, if it's that important, you should be able to spare a few to chase down that robot. Perhaps some of your dragons. I won't interfere with them, that would actually be helping the stupid mortals, and I'm not prepared to take this that far. Up to you. I won't forget this, Kraken.
The Fiend of Air growled as she faded away and disappeared.
Neither will I, Tiamat.
Kraken purred.
But for entirely different reasons, I suspect. Father Chaos, that felt good.
He snickered.
I do believe I've actually lifted my spirits some. Let the Light Warriors come. I'll give them a fight to remember, after all, they're coming into my world. Alright, if Captain Eddie's still in Onrak, he'll probably be hanging out round a bar on the wharf I know. Ah, there he is.
Bicky grunted, eye fixing on another pirate who was lounging on the docks, drinking from a disgusting-looking mug of some green swill.
We'll get the details out of him, and then you two can rough him up like you did with Sarquis. Sounds good.
Vlad almost smiled as they approached the other pirate.
So, just going to ask him. Why not? Me and Eddie always got along fairly well, though I see that changing shortly for some reason.
He grinned in greeting.
Ahoy, Eddie. Yeh got guts showing your face round here after that mess with that merchant's daughter. Bicky? Har har, I'd heard the provokin' navy put your head on a pike.
Captain Eddie stood up and grinned right back.
Guess you managed to steal it back. As for the merchant, I was able to get the idiot to follow me out into the desert with some hired burly boys. Didn't do him much good against the sandworms, and the rest was just a matter o' bribery. There's too many of 'em in this city anyways.
Bicky shrugged.
The desert, would that be something to do with the business that Fairy Sargass told me about when I ran into him at Gaia's port? I was hoping to talk to ye about that. That bastard's at the port.
Eddie swore.
I told him to stay in the capital and throw off suspicion. I'll nail him to me prow for a figurehead.
He shook his head and smiled again.
You're too late, I'm afraid. Sold him to a merchant prince out there. Runs a caravan that tends to the north side. Name Stan. Right. Glad to hear that.
Vicky nodded at Mary and Vlad, who advanced with ominous looks in their eyes.
He's all yours, mates. We'd like to talk with you about a friend of ours.
Mary purred, fingering her hammer. Several broken bones, a few lacerations, and a heave-off of the docks later, the light warriors walked away, whistling casually.
Nicked his wallet, too.
Drake winked, holding a bulging pack Eddie had carried on his back up.
There's 50,000 gold pieces in there. Not hard to figure out where he got them from. Yeah, can use 'em to buy her back, then.
Vicky advised them.
Now I know what you're thinking, but yeah can't do the same to that fella as ya did to Sarquis and Eddie. Those merchant princes in the desert are all connected, and they hold grudges. Get too rough with Stan and you might wake one day to find a pro-assassin standin' on your face. How about negotiating?
Drake asked quickly, before the others could protest.
Can we do that? Hell yeah. Of course.
Vicky shrugged.
Matter o' fact, he has to, one o' their rules, sorta code thing. He refuses to negotiate, all rules re-off and the others in his caravan'll letcha do anything you want to him. Then we'll be fine. Trust me on this one.
The ninja winked at his friends, then blinked.
Wait, what do you mean yeah? Aren't you coming along? Nah, Smite can handle the steering by now, and I need to have Denise teach me how to work that submare whatever.
Vicky explained, sniffing Eddie's discarded mug dubiously and tossing it into the sea after him.
No way I'm letting her drive it to the sea shrine. Her ma'd keel haul me. Guess that makes sense.
Luke acknowledged.
We'll be off, then. See you in a couple days. And then it's time to haul Kraken up to the stand for all the shit he's done.
Vicky chuckled grimly.
And people think my rap sheet's long. Be off with ye, I got some learnin' to do.
Though he had a few false starts and nervous moments, after he grew used to the steering, Mr. Smite proved to have a steadier hand than his erratic captain, and took them to the north end of the Onrak Desert in a day. From there, they lowered the airship over the first caravan they found and dropped a pirate from a rope to ask for directions to Stan's. Though they didn't dare try to land the airship on the shifting sands, Drake suggested that they keep it hovering over the caravan in question when they found it, while he, Mr. Smite and Luke went down to negotiate, on the grounds that those two looked the most visually intimidating.
Hello, sir.
The elf cheerfully greeted the stunned merchant as they jumped down from the ropes.
You would be Stan, I hope? We understand you recently acquired a certain rare treasure from Gaia, and are interested in purchasing her.
The swarthy merchant smiled at that.
Ah, news travels fast. Indeed, we have, although I regret to inform you that it will not come cheap. Really? Such a shame.
Drake made a dramatically tragic face.
And here I was hoping we could persuade you on the not getting bombed from above discount.
Stan looked up at the airship, then back to them, then repeated. Getting the hint, Luke and Mr. Smite flexed their muscles ominously.
I see.
Stan nodded, then moved his arm in a flash of steel that went skittering away across the sand as Drake's hand flashed out to meet it. Sucking his fingers, Stan stared at the ninja's sword.
Don't do that.
Drake advised him.
Well. This is. You will regret this if the merchant princes hear of it.
Stan blurted.
This? Nah, this is just negotiation.
Drake reasoned.
Of course, if you refuse to negotiate, maybe we might have to get cruder, but the way I hear it, if you refuse to negotiate then we have every right to respond accordingly. What's it going to be? You call this negotiation?
Stan sputtered.
Honest negotiation.
Drake shrugged, then dropped the cheerfulness.
Enough. Your call. How much are you selling her for? Think very carefully about your answer, unless you want to end up like the pirate who sold her. We've already dealt with him.
Stan stared at him, working it out, before hanging his head.
For you, practically at cost. 50,000. Well, what do you know, that's exactly what I was going to try and settle for after further negotiation. And here we are on that number right off. Well then, let's have it at that, shall we?
Drake tossed Eddie's wallet to him.
Right, get that ferry for us, will you? And in case you're thinking about coming out of there with a crossbow or anything, those two mages up on the ship that are watching you have very itchy trigger fingers. You're lucky they didn't fire after that stunt with the dirk.
Stan stared up at Vlad and Mary peeping over the airship's rail and nodded slowly, then turned and went back into his caravan, emerging with a glass bottle.
Here. Take her and leave me alone. Pleasure doing business with you.
Drake grabbed the bottle, and they climbed back onto the ship.
Right, time to let you out, I think.
He uncorked out, and a tiny, winged female flew out, no larger than his hand. Her leotard looked to be made out of leaves.
Right, I suppose I should be thanking ya.
She admitted in an accented, high-pitched voice.
From what I heard ya paid ol' Stan back in full for that stunt his. Mind if I ask why? Anything for an old friend.
Mary waved at her.
It's us, Senna. Mary and Vlad.
Upon seeing them, the fairy's suspicious frown melted away.
Aha, ya too. That explains it.
She looked around at the pirates and tugged.
Yevi been mixing up with the wrong sort o' folks while Yevi been gone, ain't cha? I warned ya about that. Just the opposite, actually, Miss Senna.
Drake assured her.
These two have been a shining influence on us all, and have convinced every one of us to reform and mend out ways. You have my word, we haven't gotten caught for a single crime since we met them. Oh, give me a break.
Vlad rolled his eyes.
Ya wouldn't happen to be an insurance salesman too, would ya?
Senna laughed.
So, ya came all this way just to rescue lil ol' me, then? Sweet, but I ain't buyin'. Out with it. You're light warriors, you're savin' the world, how can I help ya? Drat, we've been found out.
Mary laughed as well.
We need some of your oxyali, Senna. It's to get to Kraken so we can kill him. That's a good enough reason for me.
Senna nodded.
Get me some water and I'll mix it up for ya. Think ya could gimme a ride back to Gaia after you're done making fish cakes out of ol' Soggy? No problem at all.
Luke assured her.
Right then, back to Onrak City. Time to get back to work.
One more night of sleep later, the light warriors awoke at sunrise and walked down to the docks as the people of Onrak City were just starting their days. Most were still indoors, but there were a few civilians walking the streets, ignoring the light warriors as they went about their business. Even in the half-flooded city, they survived, and continued to do so despite everything Kraken had thrown at them.
We never did stop by the people in charge here to explain who we were.
Drake noted, observing the disinterest.
Even with the airship, I guess people just assume we're random adventurers. Should we do something about that? Nah. Waste of time.
Luke shook his head.
Should be fairly obvious when the sea shrine comes back up. Fair enough.
Drake agreed as they reached the docks. Here, there was more activity, and familiar, Vicky's pirates were swimming around the shed containing the submarine, apparently preparing it for action.
All right, that'll do it. Get back up here, you swabs.
Mr. Smite yelled from the dock, then turned to greet the warriors.
You're awake. Good. It's ready to go now, we just need to christen it. Is that really that important?
Mary wondered.
I mean, I know it's a tradition, but... It's more than that, lassie.
Vicky emerged from the shed with Denise, who looked to have been working all night from the bags under her eyes.
It be one way o' honor in the sea, somethin' every true man who calls himself a man o' the water does, even if we don't like the current management none. But maybe today, that'll all change, and we'll get the right sort of fella back again. I might be flyin' the Icarus now, but the water'll always be me true home, and I ain't skippin' on the rules. Ya got a name for this baby, Gel? I haven't been able to think of a good one.
Denise admitted. Vicky chewed his lip, then nodded.
Right. Smite, the booze.
Taking the bottle his first mate silently offered him, Vicky leaned over the edge of the dock and hurled it at the submarine's hull under the shed.
From now on, this vessel's the good ship. Nah. Not if I'm steering it. Right, this is the dread ship, Road. Climb aboard, lads.
Yelling in approval, the pirates piled into the shed and down the ladder.
Right, we're off. Go tell your ma, Denise, we'll be back once we rip Kraken a new one. Right.
She nodded at Vicky.
Be careful. Me? Ha.
Vicky laughed.
Don't worry, I ain't died this long, I don't plan on it now. Come on, fellas.
The light warriors followed the pirates down, with Vicky last, closing the hatch behind him. Inside the submarine, it was all one chamber, with controls almost as complicated as some of those on the Icarus. There were many glass windows at various places around it, largest of all in the front, showing the murky waters and an occasional fish outside. Where there weren't windows, there were glowing displays and control panels. The pirates were already positioned at the ladder, with Mr. Smite standing at the helm. Vicky jumped onto a raised seat in the center of the chamber and grinned.
Cast off, lads. Aye aye, Captain.
Mr. Smite began moving the wheel while two pirates to his sides worked consoles of their own, and the submarine came to life, slowly turning away from Onrak towards the east.
Just sit back and let us handle this part, fellas.
Vicky advised the light warriors as they began moving forward.
Me and Denise taught these lugs how to do this. Kraken'll send out a bunch of nasties to get in our way, I'll bet, but the Road can handle 'em, no sweat. Once we actually get to the shrine, you'll be up. Sounds like a plan.
Luke nodded, sitting in a chair at the back and relaxing. After a moment, the other three did as well, and they watched the pirates take the submarine deeper and deeper. Stunned fish swam away in fear as their metal analog passed their way, even sharks took one look and fled as fast as they could. Those that weren't corrupted did, at least, those that were tried pathetically to bite into the hull, and the Road repelled them without even slowing down. It was an hour into the voyage, when the light from the sun far above was just starting to fade, when Mr. Smite began growling.
Is that? Yeah. Enemy sighted, Captain.
The huge pirate reported.
Red sahags. Hundreds of them. They're everywhere. Well then, ain't that considerate of 'em?
Vicky chuckled.
We'll have to thank 'em appropriately. Time to start the party, lads. Ready the harpoon guns. Harpoon gun.
Drake raised an eyebrow.
What the heck is that? Lefinish technology. This baby's swarming with it.
Bicky chortled.
Ya think folks today could have built this baby without it?
The pirates followed his orders, and as the swarms of Sahaghin closed in, Bicky raised a hand.
Wait for it, wait for it.
The hand dropped.
Now.
The submarine began shaking as weapons around the hull unloaded, and the Sahaghin screamed, clusters of metal spears exploding outward into them and tearing through their scales. The weapons continued firing, and the submarine continued on. Within minutes, the swarm was left behind, and they continued deeper.
Next wave sighted, Captain.
Mr. Smite reported soon.
Big eyes this time. Herm.
Bicky frowned.
Those buggers use the flash spell. Can't let 'em get too close, or we'll be blinded. Good news is, they're slow. Net shots.
Spheres of steel were launched at the eyes, seemingly innocuous. When they reached their targets, though, they suddenly expanded into nets of steel wire that snared the big eyes and dragged them down and away.
Right. Next.
From there, Bicky and his pirates continued to repel any and all attacks. When snake-bodied Naga with human heads came swimming up, murmuring the words to deadly spells, Bicky released a load of what he called mines, steel spheres covered in spikes. The Naga scornfully destroyed them with their magic, and the mines detonated in horrendous explosions, the spikes becoming shrapnel that tore the wicked spellcasters to shreds. When sharks blasted forward, skins ashen grey and faces shining with the violet light of Kraken's blessing, Bicky responded with more explosives, this time torpedoes that mimicked the fish's streamlined shape to hit their targets at high speed before detonating. Even when pirate ghosts rose from the depths, angrily cursing them, Bicky simply raised a crystal orb for Mary to focus a harm spell into. The spell cannon released it widely onto the enemy and dissipated them. Finally, long after the light above had faded and Bicky had had to activate the submarine's own lights, they saw something ahead in the gloom. A massive, square-shaped edifice of ancient, crumbling architecture. It had been a wonder, every inch of stone carved to represent the ocean and all the life that dwelled therein. Then it had sunk, and rotted, and decayed. Still, the outer structure remained solid enough that there was no visible way inside. Sitting on the bottom of the ocean floor, the sea shrine loomed before them.
Now what?
Luke wondered.
How do we get in? There's a door there, halfway down.
Mr. Smite pointed out.
Shall we make for it? Aye.
Bicky agreed, then blinked as something else began rising up between them and the sea shrine. Something unspeakably large, that groaned as it shifted its fins and opened its eyes, revealing the purple light.
A whale! A blessed whale!
Mr. Smite choked out, stunned.
Captain, what do we do against that? The torpedoes again! Damn the torpedoes! Full speed ahead!
Bicky roared, pounding his fist into a red button on his chair's armrest.
Harpoon cannon, fire! Harpoon cannon!
Drake stared as, with a groan and a rumble, something emerged from the nose of the submarine, below the front window. A spearhead larger than a man. With a rushing sound, it blasted outward on a chain and slammed into the whale, right between the eyes. The humongous beast roared in pain, and the chain began retracting, pulling the submarine to the foe where the harpoon was lodged in its face.
We're rushing at it.
Drake pointed out the obvious.
What are you doing? Kicking this punk's sorry arse back to the bottom.
Bicky smashed a matching red button on his other armrest, and the front of the ship popped out dozens of other blades, these ones apparently stationary. The vessel slammed into the whale, and again it roared.
You're insane!
Vlad screamed. And Bicky laughed, long and wild.
Maybe I am, but this bugger's dead. Release.
A third button was slammed, and both spikes and chain detached. Mr. Smite pulled the submarine back, and the whale sank down, unmoving, its head filled with sharp metal.
Phew, wasn't sure that'd work. You weren't?
Luke demanded.
Well, how was I supposed to test it? You saw for yourself, that one's a one-shot.
Bicky shrugged as the submarine pulled into the sea shrine's entrance.
Last ditch. Well, anyways, here's your stop-off point. We'll circle this baby around and keep ol' fish faces boys occupied, the ones that re out here anyways. You get in there and bring the big man down. Right.
Mary fingered a vial of oxyali around her neck, similar to those worn by the other 3 light warriors.
Good thing I thought to work with Senna on these. A little modification, and they actually let us breathe water. Let's go. Right.
Luke climbed up and opened the hatch, then shoved his way out through the water that poured in. The other 3 followed suit quickly and slammed the hatch back before too much came in and overloaded the emergency drains. And then they stood inside the sea shrine, at the bottom of the ocean, where the fiend of water lurked. It was dark and dismal, there was no luminescent glow as the earth cave had held, nor the ever-burning fires of Gurgu, making Mary's modified lamp spell necessary from the beginning. Revealed, the sea shrine was no more pleasant to see, the halls before them were dead and silent. Not even seaweed and bottom feeders dared thrive here, their only statues, remnants of long-dead merfolk, made of the same white marble that formed the shrine itself with opal gemstones decorating them. In the sunken shrine, they seemed a mockery. No life, no light, nothing but the eternal motion of the water that filled it, held it down below.
It's wrong.
Mary shuddered.
Water should hold this place up, not keep it down. This is bad. Evil. I can feel it, all around. Kraken's touch permeates every drop of this. We have to be careful. Aren't we always?
Drake remarked cheerfully, watching the submarine slip away.
At least Bicky and his boys are joining in this time around. Just hope they don't miss and hit the shrine with some of those torpedoes. I doubt your element would appreciate that. My element?
Mary jumped.
Why do you call him that? Well, that stupid vampire said Luke's is the orb of air, so that leaves yours as the orb of water.
The elf reasoned.
That means that it's going to be down to you to lay the finishing blow on the big nasty this time. Feel up to it. I don't know.
Mary shook her head.
Don't worry, we'll help you out.
Drake smiled encouragingly.
Like this.
Suddenly clenching the fingers of the Zeus gauntlet he had received in the Castle of Ordeals, he sent lightning bolts skittering through the water, though they quickly dissolved in the conduction to a mobile sword of glow that washed over the hiding Sahaghin he had spotted, roasting them. The red ones expired, shrieking, but the green ones swam out, crispy but alive.
Your magic will not suffice to get past us.
One of them rasped.
Blessed. 4 of them.
Luke glanced at Vlad.
Feel that this is worth a stronger spell, or should we brace em physically? Let's carve them up.
Vlad replied with a nasty smirk, pulling out a dirk that was longer than his normal knives.
I picked this up in Gaia. Always wanted one as a kid, but never could afford it, and I probably would have killed myself if I actually tried to use it. Now, though. You've got me to thank for that.
Drake laughed, launching himself at the first foe.
Remind me to send you the bill someday.
As he neared it, the Sahag sneered and extended its arm, firing a jet of boiling water that hissed as it moved.
Whoa! A wizard Sahag, eh?
Fortunately, Bahamut's training had paid off. Drake took advantage of the water to launch himself up and over the shot and Sahag both, spinning as he came around behind it and taking its head off.
Ugh!
Luke grunted as he simply took the hit and cleaved his foe in half.
Come on!
Mary seemed to be following a similar strategy, but then the spell neared her. She raised her hammer and blocked with it, avoiding most of the damage and maintaining momentum that she continued with to strike the foe, crushing its ribcage.
Ha ha ha!
The fourth one laughed as Vlad maintained his distance.
Smart move, but I'll get my spell off first.
It choked as the black mage's dirk slammed into his throat, and Vlad lowered his hand.
Who said I was throwing a spell?
Walking over, he retrieved the dagger.
Well, that seems to have done for these. Behind you!
Mary urged, and her brother spun to see a shark ramming him.
Damn!
He tried to defend with the dirk, but despite the wound he scored across its face, the beast bit down on his arm. Before it could tear, though, Drake was there, slashing much deeper and killing it.
Gotta watch out! We're all better, but we're still not perfect.
He noted.
Yeah. No, it's okay, let me.
Luke waved at Mary, then concentrated and healed the wound on Vlad's arm.
You've got better range of magic than I do, so I should use my healing spells first if we've got a moment to relax. I can't use harm spells, for one, and we've seen that there are ghosts here. True enough,
Mary admitted as they continued towards the back of the entry hall. At the end, the path forked to two staircases. One went up, the other down.
Which way should we go? Kraken will be below,
Vlad predicted.
We should take that path. Wait.
Drake darted over to the other stairs.
I hear something. Somebody calling us. Sounds like a woman.
The others exchanged glances.
The mermaids. It's got to be.
Luke realized.
Should we go check on them? Of course we should.
Mary looked surprised that it was even an issue.
I don't know. There will be more monsters up there. It might be better just to head for Kraken as fast as possible.
Vlad shook his head dubiously.
I say we go see them. They might have some sort of treasures or something to help in the fight.
Drake reasoned. Luke nodded as well.
That's sound thinking. Oh, all right.
Vlad snapped.
Let's go, then. Just try to hurry it up.
Climbing the stairs that led up, they found themselves facing more of the pirate ghosts, advancing down the halls and moaning. The spirits of those who had been called down as sacrifices to Kraken lurched towards them, eager for company.
Sister, I believe Luke correctly pointed this out as your cue. I doubt my fire magic would prove effective enough against undead this strong when underwater. Fair enough.
Mary raised her hands.
I've been wanting to try out this anyways. It's the strongest harm spell there is. Let's see how these ilk like it.
Spheres of light appeared halfway out of both palms, too bright to look at properly, and blazed out holy energy that melted the ghosts as it washed over them, continuing down the hall to cause more shrieks beyond their vision.
It's even reaching the ones we can't see yet. Awesome.
Drake gave Mary a quick hug.
And you were worried about not pulling your weight? Sheesh. If only Kraken was undead.
She gave him a worried smile.
Oh well, let's go on before the ones I couldn't reach zero in on us.
They followed the wake of the harm spell through the twisting tunnels, and soon enough located another staircase. As soon as they neared it, all of them could hear the cries Drake had noticed.
Help!
A female voice pleaded, endlessly.
Help! Help! Have no fear, the light warriors are here.
Drake bounded up the stairs and struck a pose.
Afraid we've all got girlfriends or boyfriend, in one case already, but we've still got plenty of autographs. You know, I haven't said this enough lately.
Vlad followed him with a withering glare.
Idiot. Ignore him.
Luke followed up, though whether he was speaking to Drake or to the mermaids was unclear.
Hey, girls. Calm down, we're here.
Mary was last, casting one more eye behind her for more ghosts before climbing up. Merfolk were there, as they had hoped, despite Common referring to them as mermaids. Both genders were present, hovering in the water on many-colored fishtails. Though their faces were different, they all held the same emotions, relief, tinged with worry. The one who had been doing the calling was a pink-tailed young woman with blonde hair who relaxed visibly at seeing their presence.
You're here. Thank you. Are you here to kill Kraken? That's the plan.
Luke nodded.
We've already got Lich and Carrie down, so we should be able to manage him too. Darius managed to send us word of you in a dream, using a spell.
Another mermaid chimed in.
We've been waiting so long. Does Kraken keep you in here?
Drake wondered, looking around. The top floor of the sea shrine was no nicer than the rest. Despite some apparent efforts, the corruption persisted, leaving it dark and seaweed-infested.
Yes, all of us have lived our entire lives on the 5th floor.
The first one to speak shuddered.
He rarely visits us, thankfully, but when he does...
She shuddered again.
Please, kill him. Then we can return to the outside world. If we don't...
She looked away.
If you don't, what?
Mary picked up on that anxiously.
What is it? We've taken a risk by calling you up here.
A merman with a long black beard explained.
Kraken said we were free to choose if we wanted to help you or not, but that if we did and you lost, he'd turn us all into nothing but bubbles. That's not going to happen.
Luke promised.
We're going to bring him down. We hoped you would. That's why we took the risk.
The first speaker smiled as several other merfolk brought forth various pieces of armor and weapons.
Anything you wish from here is yours. Is that opal gear?
Vlad stared at it.
That should provide amazing protection. Heavy, though. That lets me out for it.
Drake shook his head.
Mobility's important for me now. It's all yours, big guy. Nice.
Luke looked it all over.
Shield, breastplate, gauntlet, oh, here's something else.
He held up an opal bracelet.
This'll be protective for you guys, won't it? Yes, it's enchanted like the ones we wear.
Vlad held up his arm to display a silver bracelet.
The best that lightweights like us can come to wearing armor, for the most part. Shame there's only one. Take it, sister. But...
Mary frowned.
I can take hits better than you can. Admittedly, not by much, but still. You're also more reckless than I am.
Vlad pointed out.
When it comes to fighting, anyways. Doubtless because you trained with Luke. Just take it, we don't have time to argue. Please. All right.
Mary slipped it on, then glanced at Luke, who was beginning to draw his old armor off.
Hey, not in public. Sarah will murder you if she finds out. Could somebody show him to a side room? Weapons here too.
Drake was looking them over with interest.
An axe and a staff. Neither is any of our styles, unfortunately. Let me see those.
Vlad walked over to them.
As I thought, enchanted. They both have spells stored in them like that gauntlet of yours. So they can be used to cast spells instantly, without the chanting.
Drake grinned.
Cool. So what are they? A medium-strength fire spell for the staff.
The black wizard muttered, then widened his eyes as he held the other.
And for the axe, medium-strength harm. Now we're talking.
Luke emerged from the side room he had been shown, clad in his new gear.
I'll take that, thanks. And you should use the staff, Drake. Actually, I was thinking Mary could take it.
The ninja disagreed.
That way she'll have an offensive spell if she's in a tight spot. Right.
Mary picked the staff up.
Well then, thank you for everything. We'll go fight Kraken, then. One more thing.
The first mermaid to greet them indicated something, a stone slab as large as a man, covered writing.
Darius told us to tell you of this. It's too heavy for you to take now, but once you slay Kraken, please return. Apparently, you'll need this. I don't know why it's carved in stone, but it's... Well, it translates the common language into Lefinish. Darius said you would need it. Hey, remember that one guy in Melmond, Dr. Un?
Drake snapped his fingers.
He was looking for this baby. Boy, will he be happy. That seems to mean we'll need to go to Lefane.
Vlad noted.
A prophecy's a handy thing to have around.
Luke agreed.
Well, cross that bridge when we come to it. For now, Kraken. Thanks, folks. We won't let you down.
Turning, they proceeded back to the fourth floor. More ghosts had gathered behind them, and now lurched towards them, moaning.
Let's try these babies out, Mary. All right.
Mary nodded. The two light warriors held their weapons high, and the spells formed. Though the fire magic was dampened by the water, combining it with the harm spell from Luke's axe strengthened it back to normal potency, and the ghosts were laid to waste. Continuing back the way they came, they dropped to the third floor, and then further down to the second. Down the winding pathways of the sea shrine they continued. Here, they met even nastier foes than the wizard sahags, aquatic serpents, poison-clawed giant lobsters, and hulking sea trolls all came their way. For all of them, Vlad's lightning, Luke's blade and Drake's combination of both destroyed them all, and Mary kept them alive as they continued. The underwater halls wound on, each exactly the same as the one before, seemingly endless. But finally, they found more stairs and went down once more.
This should be the final floor.
Drake noted.
Hey, wait, a side chamber.
Inside it, they found a solitary treasure chest.
Let's see here.
The elf blinked as he opened it.
What the heck? Just a scrap of ribbon. Is this a joke?
As they saw it, both Vlad and Mary gasped.
Whoa. Guess not. The enchantments on that thing make other armor magics look like a joke.
Vlad explained hoarsely.
It's got protection against every magical element in existence.
Mary finished.
Tricked out to the maximum nice.
Drake surveyed the ribbon approvingly.
So, who wants it? One of you two, I'd say.
Mary and Vlad glanced at each other.
Your turn this time, brother.
Mary decided.
I've got the opal bracelet. You want me to wear a ribbon now? Wonderful.
Vlad snorted in disgust.
I'm sure Fire will love the look. Use it to tie your hair back.
Luke suggested.
The ponytail look. I've heard it's in right now. Yes, but so are mohawks.
Vlad grumbled, but did as the knight suggested.
There. Let's go. Testy.
Drake noted, then jumped the lightning bolt.
Whoa, what are those?
Coming their way were spinning cones of animated water.
Water elementals.
Mary identified them.
Watch out! Right. I'll shock them.
Drake started to use the Zeus gauntlet, then grunted as Vlad shoved him aside.
No, out of the way.
Chanting, the black wizard unleashed a white mist that cooled the water as it moved towards the foes. The water elementals soaked it up like sponges, instantly freezing solid.
Ice, not lightning. Quick, smash them before they break free.
The other three quickly did so, and they moved on. Several more waves of water elementals came on them, and though they managed to fight back several times, the light warriors always won in the end and continued to massive doors that looked to be carved out of opals of tremendous size.
3 guesses who's through there, and the first 2 don't count?
Drake smirked.
Everybody ready? Looks like it.
Luke nodded.
Mary.
For a moment, the white wizard looked worried, but then she bit her lip and nodded.
Let's do this.
Shoving the immensely heavy doors open, they entered the final room of the sea shrine. The chamber was decorated grandiosely, wall-to-wall statues in the same style of the rest of the shrine lined it. All were identical, of a single merman. He held a trident, wore a crown, and had a beard that would even put bickies to shame.
Who's this guy?
Drake wondered.
I'm so glad you asked that.
A voice hissed, full of malice, from the glowing purple sphere that rested on the altar before the throne, a familiar sight by now. It opened, and one by one, tentacles began to emerge, long, winding, blubbery limbs that poured out like water. Tens, hundreds of them sloughed out before the rest of the fiend followed suit. After a triangular blue vest came a bloated, bulbous head of the same purple flesh. Turning upright, he revealed his face, tiny, deep-sunk eyes shining with cruelty gazed at them from above a wide mouth filled with broken, rotting teeth. And as the familiar feeling of darkness and dread washed over them, and all the water in the room evaporated in a rush of power, the fiend of water sneered.
This is my alternate, the element of water. Or at least, the physical form he liked to take most often. Not very impressive, is it?
He stroked one statue with a tentacle, then crushed its head.
He worked so hard, to make the sea teem with life, to tame its waves into a form that could support mankind, to help them. And then I came, and in half the time I undid everything of his and turned it all to chaos and despair. I like to keep these statues here, so I can look at him, and gloat over how much of a fool he was. How pathetic. I gotta agree with those last 2 words of yours, but probably not in the same way you meant them.
Drake shook his head in disgust.
Man, do you ever have ego issues? I think you had better watch that tongue of yours, brat. Don't want to lose it, do you?
Kraken wagged a tentacle.
Of course, now that you're here you don't really have a choice in the matter. You should have thought this out better. Mortals, challenging Kraken, the fiend of water? How foolhardy! We challenged the other 2 fiends.
Luke shrugged.
And we won. Seems to me this shouldn't be too different. Is that so?
Kraken purred.
And yet, while you 2 seem to be big talkers, I don't see anything of the sort coming from the one who actually holds my orb.
He raised a non-existent eyebrow.
Mary, isn't it? The white mage, from La Fane. White wizard, actually.
Vlad corrected.
We've been upgraded. Quite, brat. I wasn't talking to you. You had your time in the spotlight with Carrie. Now it's your sister's turn.
Kraken dismissed him with the flick of a tentacle before focusing back on Mary.
Well, Mary? I'm your enemy, more than any others. You must hate me, don't you? Come on, show me. You know who and what I am, it shouldn't be too hard. I will kill you.
Mary glared at Kraken, raising her hammer threateningly.
Kraken, fiend of water. I'll stop you, and everything you've done. It all ends here.
Kraken was silent for a moment, and then he laughed, face contorting in a smirk.
Ho, ho, ho. Was that it? Come on, try again, with more feeling. You can do better than that. Don't listen to him, Mary.
Drake urged him.
It's fine. We'll all bring this slimy bastard down together. You think your words can reassure her, elf?
Kraken tugged.
You're wrong, I'm afraid, horribly so. She knows. Knows what?
Luke frowned.
What the hell are you talking about? Something that most people would consider an good quality, that so few people lack in this world. In short, your little healer is too nice. Far, far too nice. Hatred, which came so easily to her boyfriend and brother, she finds it extremely difficult to manage. Even with Astos, who killed you, Drake. At the time, she felt rage. But after, she couldn't maintain it. She could only feel pity for that twisted wretch and the misery his life had been. And now, even me, she can't bring herself to hate me. Dislike, rage, anger, but not hate. Perhaps I made the right choice in not troubling her life before now after all. She will do her best to summon it up, to kill me like she did every other foe she's forced herself to slay, against her own instincts. But it won't be enough. Not against the fiend of water. And because of that, you will lose. You really are one hell of a mouthy squid.
Drake glared angrily up at Kraken.
Seems you've made a bit of a bad move, though. Evaporating all the water in here? Showy, but hardly smart. I doubt you can fight to the fullest when it's dry, given that form of yours. And you were mocking your alternates. Oh, but who said we were going to fight in the dry?
Kraken cackled, and with a surge of power the back of the chamber exploded, revealing the ocean's bottom beyond. Still facing them, the fiend of water blasted away backwards, out into the endless seas.
Come on then, light warriors. Come and get me. Shit!
Drake cursed, leaping out of the shattered chamber.
After him. Don't get too worked up.
Vlad warned as the other three ran out as well.
He probably wants us to get separated. Easier to fight us that way, when we can't help each other. He's intelligent. And that's not all he is. He's afraid, too. I could see it in his eyes.
Luke continued.
All that bluster was to try and hide that. He's scared of us. He knows we can kill him. Then let's do just that.
Mary clenched her jaw.
Pity there's no shield spells that I can think of that'd be useful here. Indeed. There's hardly an anti-pummeling spell.
Kraken's voice came from above, and they all braked and stared up as the fiend of water descended upon them.
Gotcha! Damn, lost track of him in this darkness.
Drake spat as massive tentacles lashed out at them all, striking over and over again with blows that would fell an ox. Luke bore them well enough, and Drake managed to dodge most of his, but the two mages were caught completely flat, reeling under the punishment from the endless limbs. Rolling away, they stood again once they were out of range, breathing heavily.
You like surprises, don't you, punk?
Vlad snarled.
Well, so do I, I've been saving this, just for you.
From his back, wings of electricity formed, hundreds of lightning bolts lined up like feathers. He flung out his hands, palms forward, and the bolts shot out at Kraken in rapid succession, slamming into tentacles one after another. In the water, the bursts of power as they impacted were twice as large, and Kraken pulled away, hissing.
Ah, so you planned ahead. You already knew your sister would be unable to fight me herself, and compensated. But it won't be enough.
Luke and Drake had chopped off a dozen tentacles between them, and from the stumps, a glowing liquid the same purple as Kraken's flesh gushed out. But hundreds more still remained, and now they charged the two mages. At the last second, though, both of them shimmered and vanished, and Kraken only pummeled sand and rock.
What? Where did you go? Back here.
Mary called him from where she and Vlad now stood next to Drake and Luke. Turning, Kraken narrowed his eyes.
I see. Exit, the teleportation spell. Using that in combat? Maybe I'm underestimating you. You're still a wimp, but you've learned to overcome your lack of a killer instinct with intelligence.
He spat.
Bahamut must have been the one who saw to that. I'll have to thank him appropriately once I'm finished with you. Sink the Cardia Islands back into the ocean, I think. That seems appropriate. But first, it looks like I'll need to give you a little more respect, Ak.
He reeled under Vlad's intense lightning barrage again.
You talk too much.
The Black Wizard informed him.
People who do always bothered me. This is a fight, not an intellectual debate. Focus if you want to have any hope at all. But fiends do not have hope, Vlad. We have certainty.
Kraken rushed at them again, and they raised their weapons only to see, too late, the glow of electricity around them. The lightning spell, when it hit, had more punch than any they had felt before, and even Luke reeled.
You're not the only one who can take advantage of lightning underwater.
Laughing, Kraken began pummeling them once more.
Hold on, guys.
Gasping in pain, Mary nevertheless managed to push out healing spells that covered them all. Striking back, Luke and Drake began to chop a path through the tentacles once more.
You were saying something about her lack of willpower.
Drake taunted the Fiend of Water.
Looks to me like she's just fine in that regard. Taking hits like that, and still rolling off her magic like it was nothing, damn, I'm proud of you, Mary.
Kraken stared at her, fighting on automatic with his tentacles as he thought.
I see. If it's to help your friends, those you care about, that's where your willpower comes into play. Now it all makes sense. Well then, what will happen if you can no longer do even that? Let's break this up, kiddies.
Turning around, the Fiend of Water began spinning like a top, tentacles extended outward like a wheel. The water churned and whirled around him, and the light warriors were caught up in it. Laughing, Kraken released electricity again, and the bolts fired wildly, some of them slamming into each of the heroes as they were hauled along helplessly. Suddenly, Kraken stopped and lunged out with his tentacles. All four light warriors were positioned at intervals around his body, separate from each other, and despite their best efforts they were unable to join back up again.
Damn you!
Drake raged, slicing at tentacles as they smashed him back.
Hold on, Mary, I'm coming. Don't give up, sister.
Vlad yelled as well, turning the tentacles that came against him to lifeless stone that crumbled off from Kraken's body. Only Luke remained silent, slicing away without a word, as Kraken's face leered at Mary from behind the endless limbs that pounded her.
They know. They know you have no hope of standing against me alone, and they struggle to reach you, to save you. It will be too late. We'll see about that.
Mary held up the staff the merfolk had given her and summoned the flames, but Kraken ignored them, and his tentacles continued to strike.
Fire underwater? Maybe you're not so intelligent after all.
Kraken chortled.
Let's find out. When Vlad died fighting Carrie, all was not lost. You revived him, and he finished her. But here, you are the one with the orb of water. And more importantly, you are the only one who can use life magic, to revive the dead. So, if you die this time, will there be any hope left at all?
His eyes glittered with glee.
The orb of water.
Mary repeated slowly.
That's right, I still have that.
Shifting her grip on her hammer to her right hand, she pulled out the dead grey orb with her left hand and slapped at a tentacle with it. The orb glowed white, and the limb dissolved. And Kraken howled.
You little wretch! You'll pay for that! Enough talk!
More tentacles raged against her, pulling away from the others to leave only just enough to keep them occupied. More tentacles smashed at her endlessly, not even giving her time to breathe between strikes, and Mary faltered, feeling her health drain away.
I can't give up!
She gasped, trying to form the words for a healing spell.
I can't let them down. You don't have a choice. It's too late.
Kraken declared.
Die.
But as Mary's life trickled towards its end, there was a surge of magic, and she raised her head again, healed. And Kraken gaped.
What? Who? How? Don't let him win!
Luke called at last, rolling off another healing spell.
You're stronger than he thinks. Stronger than you know. Beat him. I will.
Mary yelled as well, taking advantage of Kraken's shock to go on the offensive. Crushing tentacles with her hammer and dissolving them with the orb, she raged against the fiend of water.
Let's go, guys. Let's kill this jerk.
Shaking his head, Kraken scowled in anger.
You boast, girl. Let's see you back those words up when I do this.
From one tentacle, there was a jet of blackness, darker even than the waters around them, and suddenly Mary's eyes were completely blackened, blinded totally. She faltered, and Kraken renewed his assault, slamming her non-stop once again without giving her time to respond.
Ha 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 ha! Now what? Mary!
Drake bellowed, and her head turned to track his voice.
Catch!
Something struck her in the chest, and she grabbed it before Kraken could snatch it away. A metal gauntlet, too heavy for her. Instantly realizing what it was, Mary pulled it on regardless and clenched her will. With no casting time needed, the lightning raged forth, and this time Kraken recoiled in pain, unable to stop his instinctual reaction. In that moment, Mary began to cast healing spells. Every time she felt a tentacle's lash interrupt her, she used the Zeus gauntlet again, and every time Kraken fell back. Finally, she lamped herself to clear the blinding ink from her eyes, and glared at Kraken again. And then, as she had seen Drake do 1,000,000 times, she turned the glare into a mocking grin.
Are we having fun yet? That's the way.
The ninja cheered her on.
What do you think of that, squid face? Shut up. Just shut up.
Kraken ceded.
I'll kill you. I'll kill you all. You in what army?
Luke snorted.
You might have been one all by yourself when we started this, but that ain't true no more.
More than half of Kraken's seemingly infinite limbs had been reduced to stumps, gushing the glowing purple that filled him.
We're almost there, guys. Once we can reach his head, Mary can spike that orb home, and we win. Let's keep it up. Close, but no cigar.
Kraken howled. Jets of ink squirted at all of their faces, and at the same time, the tentacles stiffened and began to spin again. Once more, the light warriors were caught up in the whirling storm, and this time they were blinded, unable even to see what was happening, only feel the force of the water raging against them.
Come on, then. Break free of this, if you can. All right, if you insist.
Mary rattled off one lamp spell after another, without hesitation or pause in the slightest despite the pain.
No problem at all.
Immediately, she followed the spells with more, a thick white fog, impossible to see through, that spread out to cover them all. And then, as if that wasn't enough, all 4 light warriors shimmered and vanished, becoming invisible.
There. Now you can see us. The higher level fog and invis skills. Well, I already knew you were talented.
Kraken grudgingly conceded, continuing to whirl around madly.
Unfortunately for you, that doesn't mean a thing. I don't need to see you, as long as you can't escape this attack. And if I can?
Mary replied easily, as Kraken felt her body leave his grasp, the exit spell used for combat once more.
Now I'm free, and you can't see me. You had better watch out. You mean to fight me by yourself, while your friends remain trapped in my storm?
Kraken laughed.
Brave, but stupid. You're no warrior, little girl. You forgot. I'm a light warrior, the best there is.
Mary corrected as she swam around, unseen.
You're not too bright after all, I think. You may have been right about my lack of a true killing instinct, but that hardly means everything. What I lack in that area, I make up for in others. Focus. Control. Tactics. If you need evidence of that, just look around you. You have no idea when and where I'll strike. And not with my hammer. With the orb of water, that will kill you. You'll die, Kraken. And I think you're afraid of that.
As she taunted him, Kraken grew visibly more and more enraged.
Stop it. Silence. Be quiet. Shut up. I thought you liked talking a lot.
Mary mocked him.
Or is it that you just don't like people talking back to you? You're cocky.
Kraken growled, then crowed triumphantly as he pulled his tentacles free from the others, halted his spinning and brought them all up, to strike above his head.
And that will cost you. Fool, I see right through your tricks. I knew the whole time you would come for my head with that orb. Kraken.
Despite the pain as all the tentacles lashed into her, Mary smiled.
In your own words, gotcha. What?
Kraken stared, then screamed, as 2 swords and a storm of lightning ripped into his now unprotected underside. Freed of the tentacles, Luke, Drake, and Vlad had finally struck at the fiend's main body, tearing away at it. Howling, Kraken struck down at them, then froze.
Oh, no. Oh, yes.
The moment she had been freed, Mary had charged again, and she now swam right before the horrified face of the fiend of water. Her hammer was thrown first like a meteor, smashing through the fiend of water's teeth and clearing the way for the orb of water as she hurled it into his exposed maw. As energy surged around him, Kraken pulled away and attempted to spin once more, but his limbs faltered and withered away, purple energy changing to a brilliant indigo. Only the fiend's main body remained, floating there like a blackened blob, charred by the light now shining from within him.
How could you defeat me?
He croaked.
You had nothing. Just a desire to help. That was all. How could such a thing be so powerful? How could all of you?
He shook.
It's inconceivable. But it's still not over. Tiamat still remains. And with her, soon will come.
Before he could finish, Kraken's voice was cut off by a spasm of choking.
Arg. This is it, then. But I will return. We will always return. We are the fiends. We are the bane of all.
Voice trailing off, Kraken melted into nothingness, revealing the orb of water, shining from within with indigo light. Mary swam up and took it, then looked back at the sea shrine.
Guess we should return this. I should certainly hope so.
Drake joked, swimming up to her and placing a hand on her shoulder.
Hey. You okay? I'm fine.
She smiled at him.
You were right all along. Well, I'm not the type to say I told you so.
The elf smiled.
At least not to my girlfriend. So let's just call it a job well done and let it drop, eh? All right.
Mary nodded. Leading the way back into the sea shrine, she placed the orb of water onto its altar.
The fiend of water is gone. Let the water be cured.
As the others had, the orb's light changed to blinding light, covering them all. And then, with an earth-shaking rush and a fantastic noise, they all felt the floor beneath them rise, and saw the water through the gap in the wall rush by.
It's coming back up.
Vlad realized.
The sea shrine is going back to the surface.
And then, in a blast of water that must have reached for miles into the air, the building broke the surface and came to a halt, floating upon the ocean like a leaf as it had so long ago. The sun was shining down upon the water beautifully as the merfolk cast themselves from windows above, joyously diving down into the seas in freedom and thanking the heroes who had made it possible.
You know, days like this make me think this job doesn't suck so much after all.
Drake decided.
Where's the element of water, anyways? Down here, young man.
A deep bass voice beckoned from the hole in the sea shrine, and they all walked over to gaze down into the ocean, where the form that the statues in the chamber reflected waited for them. A strong blue fish tail lashed at the waves below a hulking, muscular male torso covered in gold and jewels. Above that, a wild, tangled white beard covered his face, but didn't conceal the laughing, kindly eyes.
Thank you, Miss Mary. It's good to be back. It's good to have you back, sir.
Mary smiled, and the element laughed.
Sir? Just call me water, friends. I don't need any honorifics. I'm here to help mortals, not rule them. We all are. Though Kraken certainly did a wonderful job of screwing that up. Still, you showed him a thing or two, eh?
He laughed again.
That's 3 of 'em down now. Good work. All that's left is Tiamat, although she won't be easy. Neither were the others, but we won all the same.
Luke grinned.
Tiamat's toast when we catch up to her. That's the spirit.
Water boomed approvingly.
Well, I won't keep you, then. Relax, you've earned it, but don't be too quick to rush off, there's still something in Onrak you'll need. Oh, here.
He raised his hand and summoned the Lefinish translation slab.
Your ride'll be showing up in a moment, he can help you haul this back to the city and onto the airship. You'll need it too. Call me anytime, Mary. I'll be watching, and laughing at Tiamat when you kick her arse too.
Diving, he disappeared into the water. A few moments later, something else broke the surface, the top of the submarine.
Way arg!
Bicky bellowed as he opened the hatch.
Steve, I oughta keel haul you on the Icarus for that one. What happened?
Drake inquired.
Idiot loaded the stink bomb backwards.
Bicky shook his head in disgust.
At least we didn't try that one until near the end. Saw you brawlin' with the big guy, but figured we'd best not interfere with you. Looks like you won. 'Bout time he got what was common to him. Oh, he got that all right.
Mary agreed.
That and more. Good. Now, are we headin' back to Onrak?
Bicky suddenly saw the slab and groaned.
Oh no. Don't tell me. Souvenir. Afraid so.
Luke nodded.
Let's haul it in. And to think, I figured being a pirat'd let me avoid heavy labor.
Bicky hung his head mournfully.
Ah well, sooner we get back sooner we can have a mug or 10 to celebrate. Let's go, lads.
End of chapter.